Aiy-yu-kwee, nickname Melita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. And today I will be talking about my September wrap-up. Now, for the month of September, I read 7 books. That was 2,382 pages, which equates to about 79 pages per day. I had 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, 1 3 star, 1 3.5 stars, 2 4 stars, and 3 5 stars. So pretty good. I also had, in terms of genres, 2 contemporary fantasy, 2 contemporary graphic novels, 1 epic adventure, 1 classic children's, and 1 historical fantasy. And in terms of representation in our own voices, I had LGBTQIA+, Indigenous, and African, Caucasian American. Not as diverse as I normally like to have it, but so for September, I participated in Becca's Bookathon. This is a month-long readathon for the month of September. And it was quite an ambitious TBR for me, just because I usually average about 6 or 7 books per month, depending on the month. And given that September was a little hectic just due to colleges being back in session. I work at a college, not as a professor, but as an administrator, and it was just, we're still figuring out how to do this all remotely. So yeah, so that was interesting. But so leave it to Bookopoly. I got 8 roles, so 8 books were chosen for September, and these were 7 of those books, one of them being an audiobook. Of these books, I read this plus the audiobook. I did get that done, though I am currently in the middle of currently reading 2 others that I've rolled over to October, but I'll talk about that later. So let's just get into my reviews for the books. So the first book I read in September, technically I read in August, but because it was after my wrap up for August, I just included it into this one. But I'm not going to talk about it much because I have already put up my review for it in a separate video, and that is Aiy-yu-kwee by Darcy Little Badger, illustrated by Rovina Kai. I absolutely love this book. Like I said, I'm not going to get too much into it, but this book follows Ellie, who can resurrect ghosts, preferably animals, and this is a magical ability that has been passed down in her family line of Lipan Apache people, and in this particular world, cultural lore, creatures of lore exist, and they have an effect on, so like vampires exist and fairies exist, and of course when people came over from Europe and other places to come to the Americas, those creatures came with them, and we kind of see the effects of that in Aiy-yu-kwee. So when her cousin dies suddenly, Ellie has a dream about him, and he tells her who killed him and wants her to figure out why he was killed and to protect his family. So Ellie and her family and friends go to southern Texas to figure out how and why her cousin was murdered, and ends up finding out that a particular town is keeping secrets and is quite devious. So like I said, I'm not going to try to get too much into this book, but just know that I really did enjoy it. If you want to see more of my thoughts on this book, I will link that review up in the cards and in the description down below. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, I also don't plan on talking too much about because I have a full review planned, and hopefully that will be up closer to the release date, which is coming up, and that is Rebecca Roanhorse's new book, Black Sun. So this comes out October 13th. I enjoyed this. This made me question everything that I like in books. Like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I will say that I gave this 4 stars, and I am eager to pick up the next one. And I'm mad that this is an advanced reader's copy, and because that means I have to wait that much longer for the second book to come out. So this is the first of a trilogy that Rebecca Roanhorse is doing. This is like an epic adventure inspired by pre-Columbian America. The pre-Columbian Americas, so that's real exciting, as most epic adventures tend to be based off of what Western European cultures, but this one was really fun, and all even if I wanted to get more into this, I don't think I could without just reading the synopsis. And basically what the synopsis says it's about is what it's about. There's no other way to describe it. These next 2 books are not a part of the Bookathon TBR. However, I did pull them out just because I was having kind of a tough day and just wasn't feeling in the mood for anything. So these 2 graphic novels, I love pulling out every now and then. I think the artwork is simplistic and gorgeous, and the storylines are hilarious and lovable, and that is Soppy by Philippa Rice and Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. Both of these books have very simplistic illustrations and really kind of just simplistic storylines, but I absolutely love them both. I think these both came out like years and years ago. I believe there's like multiple in both these series now. I believe this one's on its 3rd one that's come out, and this one Sarah Anderson plans on doing a 4th. I have not gotten those yet. These are the only 2 that the first ones in the series that I have of either one. Though I have nostalgia for them. I think I got these when they first came out and absolutely love them, and they still hold up, and I just love them so much. And the fact that they can get me kind of out of a slump kind of day is just fantastic to me. So the next book I read was Akata Warrior by Nnedi Okorafor. And this was an audiobook that I got from my library. This is the sequel to Akata Witch, which I absolutely loved. I also listened through my library and bought a physical copy because I enjoyed it so much. I do plan on getting the physical copy of Akata Warrior, even though I didn't quite enjoy it as much as Akata Witch. Akata Witch, because Akata Warrior is the sequel, I'll tell you a little about Akata Witch. Akata Witch follows Sunny Unwazwe, who is American born, but her family moves her and her brothers to Nigeria, where they're originally from. And Sunny gets picked on because her American accent, as well as she is albino. But she starts to make some friends, and it turns out that she is a leopard person. A leopard person is the one with magical abilities, and is a community within the world, essentially, that have these magical abilities, but they keep it from normal people, or lambs, as they call them, non-magical folk. So this story is based on Western African folklore and legends, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I do have to say, content warning for child abuse, child death, mutilation, there's slightly graphic scenes otherwise in Akata Warrior if you're afraid of spiders. Just throwing that. Like I said, I didn't quite enjoy Akata Warrior as much as Akata Witch, but I still did enjoy the fact that I got to delve deeper into this world. I am confused though. I am wondering if there's supposed to be more to this series, as looking on Goodreads, there seems to be just these 2 books, and it felt like there was some unfinished loose ends in Akata Warrior that I that felt to me like it was setting up for another book. If anyone knows, I'll try to look deeper into it. I just haven't at the moment. But yes, I gave, I believe Akata Witch, I gave 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Akata Warrior, I'm giving 3.5, 4 stars. Akata Warrior completed my challenge of reading an audio or ebook. This next book was also a reread for me in a way, and that is The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. This is coming up on like 60 years. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize that this book was published in 1961. This book I remember a 5th grade teacher reading to us in class, and I remember loving it then, and for the Bookathon figured I'd pick it up again and see if it still holds up. And yeah, it kind of like goes how I remember, really. So this book follows Milo, who doesn't see a point to anything in life. But when a phantom tollbooth shows up in his room, he decides why not? He doesn't have anything better to do. So he takes his little electric car and goes through the toll booth and finds himself in this completely different land and world. There's Dictionopolis, there's Digitopolis, the doldrums, and he finds himself kind of being volunteered to be the hero and save the princess's rhyme and reason, to bring rhyme and reason back to this world. The characters in here are fantastic. This book in general is very clever and witty, and I feel like a lot of politicians should reread this or read this at the present moment. So like I said, I think it did hold up. There was multiple passages in here where I was literally laughing out loud. I thought it was clever and would read multiple passages out loud to my partner just to like tell him just how clever this was. I particularly enjoyed the doldrums so much. But by the end, it felt like it was kind of dragging a little bit for me, particularly when it came to other characters that Juicer was just trying to throw in there towards the end just to keep the book going a little bit. And I found it a little lagging towards the end. I either feel like it could have been cut shorter, or this could have been made into a series, just so we could have explored more of those characters. But as it was, it wasn't bad. I think I gave this 3.5, 4 stars. Like I said, I did enjoy it. It was really fun, and it was a nice throwback. There were a couple of times where like things went over my head just because I don't know why. It just did. So it astounds me. I don't know. This was a fun reread, and this covered the prompt to read a middle grade, I believe. So this next one I actually didn't plan on reading, but I saw that it was available through my library, through Libby. So I picked it up because I've kept hearing good things, particularly after the 4th book came out this year, and figured I'd pick it up and see what all the hype was about, and that was the Diviners by Libba Bray. So yes, I listened to this via audiobook. Love January Andrews' narration. Holy cow, she's fantastic. This series follows a group of characters with almost clairvoyant abilities. So we follow particularly Evie O'Neill, who ends up having to leave her hometown in Ohio to go live with her uncle in New York City, and because of some antics that she pulled, but she is able to hold on to an object and see whoever the object belongs to secrets, or like what the object has seen. Basically, she's able to get to know whoever the owner of that object was, and it's more in depth than that. There are other characters. There's hints of characters as we go through here that I believe will have a bigger role later in the series. another character who was able to had healing hands at one point and doesn't anymore, and we kind of find out what happened with him. But basically this whole book, it's following, there's murders happening, and Evie works with her uncle who works with the police to figure out why these murders are happening, because they believe it has something to do with the occult. And Evie's uncle tends to be a sort of expert on the occult and mystical. But yeah, it was like, I'm almost worried that this book was overhyped for me as I went through it. I could take it or leave it, honestly. If you've read it, does it get... I assume it gets better. Everyone keeps raving about it. So I will try... I think I talked about in my October TBR that I may try to read the next one, which is Layer of Dreams. But this one in particular, I didn't particularly enjoy Evie. I didn't think she had much growth at all. I feel like she's still a spoiled, selfish brat who doesn't tend to learn. I thought that the romance that happened with her was a little forced, or that's developing. I don't know, it just to me almost felt like too much was going on. But that's definitely one thing I'm finding I have trouble with in books when it has multiple perspectives and multiple characters that we follow, is that I just tend to have a hard time following it, particularly if it's through an audiobook. I don't know if it would necessarily be any better physically when physically read, but I don't know, it was just kind of like, this one was just kind of a meh story for me. It did get creepy on occasion. I assume that this series gets better if I go further into it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it if you read past this. I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, let me know. Otherwise, I think I gave this a three stars. It was just kind of a meh. So these I didn't get to, but so this one, The Heart, is going back on my TBR, and will hopefully be put on another one later. I kind of have my TBR filled out for the rest, for the next couple of months, so for October and November. So right now, with Apple, Skin to Core by Eric Gansworth, I'm currently listening to. Because this book does come out in October. I'm not entirely sure when, but I hope to be able to do a full review of this book once I finish. I'm enjoying it so far. There's a lot of things that like make me crack, like kind of make me giggle, because it's something that I can relate to. So this book basically is a memoir told in verse by Eric Gansworth, and kind of goes over the slur of Apple, which is a native who looks native but acts white, or is disconnected from their culture a little bit, which, I mean, but Gansworth is going through his life in a way, in verse and in poetry, that is definitely interesting to me, and that there's little things that I can pack out going, oh, me too, that too. So that to me is very, very cool and interesting. So I'm interested to see where the rest of that book goes. I am also currently reading The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones for my September TBR or October TBR. So this got rolled over as I was able to put it into the Hocus Pocus readathon for one of their prompts for, I believe, a morally gray character. Yeah, Billy. That's the prompt it's for. It's Billy, morally gray character. I think I put it in that one. So took a little bit for me to get into. I found that with Stephen Graham Jones's works, because I've read Mapping the Interior, there's like an occasional sentence that for some reason will completely slip past me, and I have to reread it several times to be able to like understand what's going on. And it's like not just this book, but Mapping the Interior did the same thing too, so it took me a little bit to actually get into it. But once I started getting into it, I'm really enjoying it now. I'm not that far in at all. As for these two books, Race to the Sun and Empire of the Wild. I hope to return them to my TBR plans in November for Indigathon. If you haven't seen that announcement, please check out Brody's channel at @2Brody or Michelle's channel from Thor Wants Another Letter, because those announcements were released recently. So I hope to be able to add a couple things that I haven't been able to get to back onto my reading list. So that is my September wrap up, as well as a kind of preview of my current read and what I plan on reading in the future. If you have read anything that I have, please give me your thoughts down in the description down below. Please, no spoilers for those who haven't read it. But if you do want to talk to me on any other platform, I'm on Instagram and Goodreads and Twitter. Would love to pick your brain about some of these books, particularly the Diviners. I would love to figure out if I'm just missing something. I'm still gonna leave some social injustices links for social injustice down in the description below. I will be doing basically like one major thing at a time though, because I understand that it can be very overwhelming to see this wall of text and of information, and it's hard to know where to start. I know that when I get something like that, I kind of go, yeah, I'm not reading any of that. So I'm just going to want to highlight one thing, and for right now, I am just going to highlight the fires that are happening on the West Coast. They are still happening. We currently have had several warnings about air quality. It hasn't been as bad out here on the coast, but inland it is terrible, and it worries me because I have family in inland. It's been ridiculously hazardous for everybody inland. I believe the measures were like over 1,000, which like 400 is when they start saying it's hazardous. So that's very worrisome. I would love to just, if you want to educate yourself on cultural practices of back burnings and prescribed burnings, so that we can stop these major fire disasters in the future, please do so. Those will be linked down in the description down below. There will also be links to a variety of different places taking donations to be able to help the victims of these fires. So if you think you have the funds to do so, please do. However, I completely understand we're still in the middle of a pandemic. This is like, the world is crazy right now, so don't feel obligated to do so by any means. But if you could do one thing, is just educate yourself and share. So that's that, but please understand that there is multitude of social injustices going throughout the community right now. But that's all I'm going to highlight in my description down below, just to keep it simple. Otherwise, I hope that everyone is doing well. I hope that you're being safe and taking care of yourself. And I hope that you're in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. I'll see you next time. Chew.